It's my old TV wife, friend, talk presenter, Alex Phillips. Hi, Alex.
Farmers.
Yeah, I know. I saw all your tweets, you and the countryside, eh? No, it was a great thing to see. It really was. Maybe we'll have a little word about that in just a while. But I thought of you when I saw this story. Now, we don't know the truth of this, but what we do know is that for some time now, Prince Andrew, cash-strapped Prince Andrew, who's skint, has been battling with his brother, King Charles. King Charles wants to evict him from the Royal Lodge, which requires apparently about £3 million worth of repairs. Charlie thought, well, this will get him out because he hasn't got any money and he won't be able to afford these repairs and it's part of his lease. Anyway, suddenly, about 2 weeks ago, Andy goes, I got the money. And he suddenly had it. And everybody's going, where the hell did he get this money from? Now, this may or may not be connected, but it's worthy of discussion. His daughter, Princess Beatrice, in the last few weeks, has been to several visits to the Middle East for various conferences. She went to the ADIPEC Energy Conference in Abu Dhabi on November the 4th. Where she met Dr. Sultan Ahmed Al-Jaber, who is from the UAE Ministry of Industry. She also was pictured recently with Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. He's also the UAE's president. And the suggestion is, and there were several meetings that journalists weren't being allowed into. One journalist who was there, an American journalist, Hadley Gamble, who interviewed Beatrice, said there was a general feeling that Beatrice was an unofficial ambassador for the UK. Beatrice was quite literally in the inner circle at a gathering of global energy CEOs. Now, the suggestion is, the possibility is, because Andy's finances have always been a bit shady, to say the least, that somehow or other this is connected with his sudden acquisition of the necessary £3 million to keep him in the Royal Lodge. So what I thought I would ask you, because I know you're an expert on geopolitics, this is the way it works, isn't it? This is the way it works. Now, if my contention is true that somehow or other Andy got his money from some rich Arab oil sheikhs, the big question is, what do they want in return? If this story is true, and I'm not the first to suggest this, by the way, this is how rich people, rich foreigners, buy influence in this country. So I do think that we have the questions need to be answered here.
Right. So you make some very important points there. So if you look back on what the royal family were used for throughout history, they were used as almost diplomatic envoys, particularly places that have other royal families. You know, when it gets to royalty that still exists in the world, it's a very tiny, small, closed club, and they know each other. They know each other like distant cousins, like family. They speak to each other, particularly when it comes to the Arab states. It's a very elevated hierarchical birthright, being royal, and they believe in that so much. You know, they're no big fans of democracy. And in the past, our royal family was used as envoys to go and charm these people, to twist their arm, to be that sort of communicator, the interlocutor on a level that they get. There isn't just some sort of, person from wherever who's been elected, now they're prime minister, but on that sort of divine level almost. And so the royal family have been very useful as ambassadors to promote British interests. And of course, Andy himself was used as a trade envoy, running up loads of bills. This is what he wanted to do, go and connect with people's ski trips and gatherings and summits. And he was always there saying, I'm here as a trade envoy for Britain. And so you do have to ask yourself what's going on in this situation. Beatrice is not a big shining light. I can't see that number 10 has signed off and said, oh, do you know what? We want to go and speak to the UAE about X, Y, and Z, and Beatrice is the person to communicate that with them. Now, I don't know. None of us know what's going on here. What we also know is that buying influence in the United Kingdom for them is very much buying into that brand, is buying connections to the royal level. It's just a beautiful thing to sell back at home. I've met this member of the British royal family, world famous as they are, the original Kardashians. The reverse interest, the reverse capital and kudos also applies. But when it comes to Prince Andrew, the big question you need to ask yourself is compromat, is whether buying influence within his circle, if this is what has happened, if bailing him out, if helping him, if, we've met him loads of times as a trade envoy, he's always going to be one of us because he's got royal blood. If actually there's a cynical element here in the reverse direction of, okay, scratch and scratch each other's backs, this man is in trouble. This man has royal connections, but he's also got a huge backstory, a legacy controversy. Does that make us weak diplomatically? Does that put us in a risk zone? Then yes, I'd say it does. If you want to draw up connections, then if it was, I don't know, the King or the Prince of Wales, I mean, Harry's out of the picture. The royal family's an ever smaller circle. But if it was someone who was considered more a senior royal, who's being sent out as a diplomatic envoy, went over there, then maybe there is an element of the government of the time using them as a facilitator. But this just altogether, the pieces don't feel right, do they? And it does raise certain alarms.
I think we deserve answers. We need to know where this money came from, because it could literally, seriously be a matter of state security. Now, just to prove that Andrew's got form on this kind of thing, as you say, he was the trade envoy. They used to call him Air Miles Andy, and he used to travel the world, staying at various embassies. His first question always was, where's the local golf course? But he and Fergie, Sarah Ferguson, used to live in this massive mansion in Windsor Great Park that the Queen built for them. It used to be nicknamed South York, after the South Fork Ranch in Dallas, the soap opera. Anyway, that building, I think, has now finally been demolished. But when he was in trouble financially again, about, I think it's now something like 9-10 years ago, it's called Sunninghill Park, officially. He put this mansion on sale, up for sale. Nobody wanted it because it was hideous and horrible. And suddenly it was bought for 15 million by a Kazakhstan tycoon called Timur Kalubayev. Now, he paid 15 million pounds for this in 2007, and you'll guess what? Nobody else wanted it. It had been on the market for months, I think years even. He paid £3 million over the odds. Now, again, do you see what I'm talking about?
So first of all, can I congratulate you on your pronunciations tonight? You're on fire. When it comes to getting all those things out, choking on them, well done. But, this is what I'm saying. You've got to understand culturally. When you look at, so first of all, when you look at Gulf states and when you look at people who don't want democracies, they don't want parliaments, it's sheikhs and emirs and sultans and shahs and all the rest of it who do the business, and they have no interest in having parliamentary democracy. To them, royalty is kudos, it's hierarchy, it's the level with which they should be communicating, not meeting some scrappy prime minister with a crap hairstyle and a cheap suit. They want royal blood. Blue blood means something to them. But also when it comes to Gulf states, geopolitically, because that's what you got me here for, I'm no royal expert, but geopolitically, you've got to imagine all of the Gulf states are kind of like the keenest kids in class who want to get top of the year. Like they're all jostling for position. They're all jostling for supremacy. By and large, you look at them, they've got cordial relationships between them, but everything's a proxy battle for getting more wealth, for getting more influence, for getting, selling more oil, for being the bigger tourist destination. They're all sharp-elbowed, keen, and they often fire friendly bullets at each other, whether it's social media bot farms, whether it's one-upmanship, whether it's sort of saying, well, I know this person, well, I've got that person in my pocket, well, I can do this. This is my sphere of influence. What have you got? And they're constantly, whether it's sport washing, whether it's greenwashing, notice every single, sports tournament now is happening in either Bahrain or Abu Dhabi or Saudi, whether it's getting a football team, whether it's, you name it, a summit for climate change. change in an oil-rich nation. It's all about that jostle for supremacy in a neighbourhood way, in a sharp-elbowed neighbourhood way. So he who gets his claws into the British royal family by hook or crook certainly feels they've got an advantage card to play within their psychology, within the way that they think about the universe and see, for instance, diplomatic relations. And so, you know, the UAE is interesting, okay? Yeah. The government's actually made a big play for UAE. David Lammy went out there, you know, bowing and scraping, and aren't they important? Well, great, you know, I suppose nominally they are allies, not as much as Qatar, who really are allies. They play an interesting game, but Qatar have our back. We've got military air bases there. We buy LNG from Qatar. They really are the ones right now in the current sort of jigsaw that we're the most dependent on. And the UAE doesn't like that. So they're constantly elbowing Qatar out the way and trying to get their privilege. Yeah. But when it comes to the UAE, you look at the biggest war going on right now. No, not Gaza. News check. It's actually in Sudan. You're talking about a third of the population displaced. You're talking about hundreds of thousands slaughtered. It's absolutely atrocious. Who's arming them? Who's giving them the supplies? Who's actually giving the RDF money and resources because they want to get in on the assets? They want to actually have a bit of land grab there, right? East of Africa. They want to have land routes to that part of the world where there's gas and more oil and rich in rare earth minerals. The people who are actually proxy warring in that particular theatre is the UAE. It's not spoken about enough, but they're eyeball deep in it. And we don't have enough of an awareness of what's going on geopolitically. And we allow people to play us, frankly, like cheap cards in a deck of poker.
And there's your problem, that a cash-strapped brother of the king is an attractive proposition to people playing the geopolitical game in the Middle East. Great stuff, Alex. You're the one who introduced me to all this, and you know, I'm getting interested after all these years. One last question to you, though. Are you still there, by the way?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, good. Tell us a little bit about, I've got to go soon, but how was today? I categorised this from what I saw. Yes, of course, it was a protest from farmers, from rural communities, from agricultural workers, but a lot of townies went as well. I thought this was a crescendo of protest from a nation of people who believe this government is doing us wrong.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It was symbolic. It was beautiful. It was the Brits coming from the countryside, descending upon our capital city. Everywhere you looked in Whitehall, there were Barber jackets. You couldn't even pick out a wear. You know, it was just a sea of Barber jackets, torn ones, not like towny ones, torn ones with mud splatters and welly flat caps. Yeah. And they were all there, like I kind of imagine they would be, to like sell wool or trade grain back in the olden days when London really was the head of commerce for Britain and Brits. And it's such a beautiful thing. But you're right, this is symbolic. When it comes to the farmers, I mean, without doubt, the government's screwing over farmers.
Yeah.
Different numbers of, well, you know, it's only this amount of farms, this, that. But frankly speaking, farmers are cash poor, but asset rich. When you add up the combine harvester, the silos, the grain storage, the fertilizer, where you keep your fertilizer, stock, land, it's worth millions. And yet when they're actually doing this in farming, they make about 30K, right? So what could they do? Oh, they could, you know, break up the farms into bits, sell it off to this developer for a solar farm, sell it off to this developer for houses, you know, all the labour, you know, ideological projects. But what you end up with is the family farming. It's not an industry where you got, you know, Sonny Jim from Lewisham saying, I want to become a farmer, let me into your industry. This stuff is heritage. It's passed down through knowledge. You have to be built up with it. And what Labour are doing is breaking that apart cruelly, spitefully, ideologically. They know what they're doing. They're lying. They're gaslighting. It's part of their agenda. And so I'm there all the way with farmers, because if we're not self-sufficient agriculturally, when it comes to food, we're no longer self-sufficient with energy. We've cut off North Sea oil and drilling. We're no longer going to be self-sufficient with food. Putin's wargaming grain supplies and fertilizers by trying to control that part of Russia. We're screwed. As a nation, we're screwed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, as you know, Alex, I've never been to the countryside, but I'm with the farmers and I'm with you all the way on this one. I really am. And as I say, I think it's more than just farmers. I think this is a nation saying this government is doing us wrong and they're lying to us. They lie and they lie and they lie, and it can't go on. Today was a wonderful day. Well done for being there, and thank you very much for being my excellent guest. That's Alex Phillips there, my fellow talk presenter.